Hi, you've reached the Talking Racewalking podcast. It's all about racewalking, of course. It's talking to racewalkers from around the world about racewalking. Join me, Noel Payne, a amateur racewalker in Canada, as I talk to elites, Olympians, record holders, masters walkers, and anybody who's out walking as fast as they can. Hi, so this is a section where I'd actually be talking to someone, a race walker. So this is where you can come in. If you know a race walker, you're a race walker, and you have an amazing story, I want to hear from you. So reach out, let's chat, let's get walking and talking. Hey everyone, welcome to the second episode of Talking Racewalking. Hey everyone, welcome to another Talking Racewalking podcast. It's your host Noel Payne here, Canadian racewalker, and it is my utmost pleasure, honor, and I think something that's actually really necessary right now is to speak to someone from Ukraine. And because this is a racewalking podcast, I am talking to a Ukrainian racewalker. I would like to welcome Yehor Shelest from Ukraine. So please, привіт, ласкаво просимо. So I have tried to say hello and welcome to Yehor. So welcome.
Привет. Thank you for having me.
My honor as well, and thank you for coordinating this. So I will tell you a little bit about Yehor. I reached out to one of his friends. We were talking about how Canada supports Ukraine, and I said I would like to talk to somebody from Ukraine. I want to talk to a race walker, and we're going to talk race walking, but we're also going to talk about what's going on in Ukraine right now. Yehor is 22 years old. Started walking at a young age at 7, but also got into it because of his parents, who apparently also race walk and coach. His first international competition in 2021, the European Racewalking Team Championships in Podbrady. So, which is, I think, racewalkers who are full geeky racewalkers will know Podbrady, very well-known event. And he says the most significant so far in terms of competitions was the 2024 World Athletics Racewalking Championships, where he participated. Yehor is at the elite level, even at young age. He is 5K PB, I do believe, is around 2033, 10K 4206, 20K 12616, and 35K 247. So those are pretty impressive times. In 2025, he's already put down some good performances at 5,000 on the track of the 2033 that I mentioned, and 2052. So those were at the Ukrainian amidst. So very impressive times, and they're very impressive race walkers. So thank you again, Yehor, for coming. And for everybody listening, I've sent Yehor some questions ahead of time. He speaks English. He understands more than he says he can speak. So it may not be as quite as flowing as before, because we're going to go by kind of a scripted question and answer. But I wanted this to work, and I really wanted to hear from Yehor. So we'll start with the first question I was going to ask him, basically, which was, well, I was going to ask him how he pronounces his name, but I think I got it right. So Yehor Shelest. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So I like 1 point for me. And whereabouts in Ukraine are you from, Yehor?
I'm from a city Sumy, northern eastern part of Ukraine.
Okay. And how close is that to the border with Russia?
20-30 kilometers.
So pretty close.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, I think 20 kilometers seems far away, but when there's when there's a conflict going on, 20 kilometers is not very far away. No, great. Okay. So one of the first questions I wanted to ask you, we'll talk about race walking and what's going on, but before we get into the meat of this interview and the conversation, tell me about yourself and how you got into race walking. I know I mentioned your parents, but how did you discover the sport?
My father showed me how to walk, so at 6 I started to go to started running on his sports section. I don't know if I say it right.
It's all good. So running first and then race walking?
I started running, and at 7 I started walking.
Nice. And were your parents really good race walkers?
My father was 2 times on the Olympics in Beijing and in Sydney.
Oh wow. Okay. So I'm gonna be doing some Googling later. You'll have to send me his name and then I can Google and mention him as well, because that's a pretty strong history of race walking. Very much so. And what about your mother as well? Does she race walk?
Can you repeat?
Your mother. So your mother, does she race walk too?
Yeah. She, I think, she already ended her career. So last competition was, I think, my first competition was her last.
Oh, no way. So but a very good race walker as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great way to start. I mean, here in Canada, it is not as common. So to have parents who race walk, I mean, that makes it easy to get into the sport, I guess.
And he walked, she walked 50 kilometers as a woman in Taizan.
Oh, wow. Okay, so she was one of the pioneers getting into the 50K. Wow, okay, that's impressive as well. Very much so. So for you, race walking wasn't a weird or strange sport.
No, it was normal for me.
Family tradition.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, and is race walking pretty popular in Ukraine?
Not as popular as I would like to. But in our city, for example, if you say that you do race walking, most people will understand what are you doing. Because one of the greatest racewalkers, Volodymyr, from our city.
Oh, wow. Okay. I think you're ahead of us, at least in terms of in Canada. People may or may not know what race walking is. Some, and then some not. It's not very common. So to have people at least know what race walking is a bonus. So that's great. Yeah. That's amazing. And then to have parents and then a really great race walker from your hometown. I mean, why wouldn't you start race walking, I guess? Excellent.
But now not all people have opportunity for do sports in general.
Yeah. No, and now is that because of what's going on right now, or would you say that's just in Ukraine that sports aren't as popular as they used to be?
Because of war.
Yeah, that I can completely understand. And I guess that brings me to the next question. With everything that's going on, how are you doing? And how are you living and training in Ukraine? How has the war affected you?
I live and train in Ukraine. As I said, I live in the suburbs of Sumy, northeastern part of Ukraine. So we fight for our independence. We help our defenders. We try to do everything that depends on us.
So with being that close to the border, has your hometown where you are, has it been hit by the rockets, or have you noticed anything where you are?
Yeah, I can count how many times rocket struck a building, or a Shahed, Iranian Shahed struck a building.
How do
Too
you
many times.
how do you keep training through all that? Is training what gives you hope, or is training a positive part of your day?
it's helping to reset your mind, I think.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can imagine. And what about your family? Is your family, do you still feel safe where you are right now, or as safe
uh,
as you can be?
mm, Now it's not so safe because a week before Russians started to try break through our border, and our defenders uh, are trying to knock them out of there.
And
So I
that's
don't know.
not very far away. Can you actually hear it going on?
We hear explosions every day, every night. Every night we hear how our air defense shuts down drones, rockets. Sometimes you.
I cannot imagine. I really can't imagine. And how do you get out for, are you afraid when you go out training? Like, is there a fear of something happen when you go for a training session?
When we train indoors, when we hear air raid alarm, we need to go to the bomb shelter and stop training. So sometimes it's very hard. But in the outdoors, I feel safer than indoors.
Oh, so you're more afraid of something happening to the building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I train outside the city.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So when you
So
train, you're going farther away from the city than you are. Yeah, that makes
yeah,
sense. Okay. Yeah.
so I don't think that drone will strike field or something like that.
The drones aren't targeting racewalkers, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, at least that's a good thing. I mean, yeah, but I can't imagine what you're going through. And so I mean, my next question was about, your hometown, but I mean, you've clearly talked about it in terms of you hear it daily. You're right next to the border. What was it like before the war? I mean, did you ever think that this would happen?
Before 2014, I don't even think about that.
Yeah, it was just like it was the border, that there was Russia, this was Ukraine, and there was, yeah, you never imagined, yeah.
Yeah. This just happened.
Yeah. Yeah, the rest of the world, just to let you know, the rest of the world doesn't understand it either. As far as we're concerned, there was no justifiable reason for any of this going on. So,
Yeah.
and
And
yeah. And you mentioned your
after
life in training. Sorry, what were you going to say?
after 2014, I started to learn history of my country, and so because of that, I have a Ukrainian identity.
That's cool. I think it's a sad reason that
Yeah,
people
okay.
have to learn about their country because of that, but I can understand. In Canada, same thing. A lot of people know something about our country, but I think it's these type of events that force people to really learn about who they are, where they come from, the history of their country. So I can imagine. And we're going to come back to talking about Ukraine and kind of what's going on, but I do want to talk a bit about race walking as well. And it's kind of a strange thing to do because I know your life is training, but as well your life every day when you're hearing the bombs coming, that is the reality as well. But what distance are you training for, and what are you doing on a weekly basis? Like how much mileage are you putting in? Are you able to train properly? And what are you training for right now?
Right now, I train for 35 kilometers. Not so big difference between 20 and 35, I think. So about weekly mileage, or how do you say it?
Yeah, mileage is perfect. Yep, that works. Mileage, or it's kind of American, but Canadians say mileage too, but they mean kilometers. It's okay.
Yeah, kilometers. So it's very hard to count because of air alarm and uh, uh, our GPS is jammed very often.
Oh, you know what? That's amazing. I would not have realized that. Um, and that's just me being oblivious, but of course you're not able to get GPS signals to use your GPS training watch, right?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I don't think many people would think of these small things. But when you're training, that must make it really hard.
Because Iranian drone is looking for a target by GPS.
Exactly. No, that makes a lot of sense, and that must make training more difficult as well.
Oh, I have a funny story.
Go ahead.
After Kursk operation, sometimes my training goes all the way to the Kursk in Russia.
So your GPS would kind of get like, oh,
Yeah.
that's weird. Yeah, I'm sure there's some weird stuff going on right now.
The furthest I reached, according to GPS, is Smolensk.
So you can't trust your GPS results right now.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And so you say you're training for the 35K. Are you ready for the change in 2026 where it's going to be half marathon and marathon distances?
Yeah, I am interested to try this. I don't know how to say it.
That's okay. I think it will be an
this
easier
distance.
transition to go from 35K to 42 instead of 35 to 50 like it used to be. So
Yeah.
and the 35K distance, I don't know what's going to happen to that one. So we'll see if that still remains after the new distances.
Everything changed so quickly.
I know. I think race walking is in a period of change right now. So,
Yeah.
and hopefully for the better. I think it just we need to bring the sport into the modern age, I think, and make a few changes. And I think half marathon and marathon, it's easier for people who run as well to understand race walking, the times and
Yeah.
the distances. Yeah. So it's completely. And my next question, I think we kind of talked about it, but through all this, Yehor, how do you stay positive and focused with everything that's going on?
Actually, I don't know. This will probably sound very sad, but
No,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you're not positive right now. How are you feeling? How are you dealing with this?
human can probably adapt to almost anything. We will never be like before the war. Sometimes it seems that the war will never end. We just have to do everything in our power to help our soldiers. And thanks to this, you can remove this anxiety, at least for a little.
Yeah, I hear. Yeah, exactly. You do what you can, and you kind of like day to day.
Yeah.
And I know I haven't experienced any type of war, so don't let me even pretend to understand what you're going through. But just in life, I know I've been different situations where you're just trying to adapt to whatever's going on to survive. But I cannot imagine what it is you're going through. And with that said, with the lack of GPS, training being difficult, the war going on, what are your goals for 2025 and like in race walking in the future? Are you still able to kind of have those goals? What do you want to do in 2025?
I have a dream to visit Japan, and I would really like to qualify for 2025 World Athletics Championship in Tokyo.
That would be amazing. That would be
Yeah,
amazing.
this is my dream.
And that's the 2025 dream. What's the big dream? What's the sport dream way up there for you? Do you have one?
The biggest dream is to become Olympic champion, of course.
Of course, okay. I don't want to assume, but yeah, I think that's amazing. Well, I mean, at 22 years old, you've got some impressive times, and I think you've got an amazing start. So hold on to that dream.
Thank you.
Always use that thing. Dream big, train hard, and then you see where it goes. So
Thank you.
I love that. And now we're getting back to what's going on. I'm a Canadian, and our country and myself and this podcast, I want you to know that we support Ukraine. We support a peaceful world. And what, if anything, can those people listening, people that are going to hear this podcast, from Canada, the United States, different places around the world, what can we do to help support you, like you and Ukraine? What is it, in your opinion, what can we do to help?
First of all, I want to thank you for this support. We really appreciate it. The easiest way to help is to donate to our defenders. I know that subreddit our Ukraine has a list of verified funds to help Ukraine. And I think one of the most famous funds is Come Back Alive.
Okay. So Come Back Alive. So if people go search Come Back Alive, that's one of the ones you would recommend supporting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think at this point, I mean, your Ukraine's main thing is defending itself. So I think, and I'm glad that Canada is continuing to support Ukraine. I think we're in a situation that is like, let me tell you that what the United States, and when I say the United States, I say President Trump, because
I understand.
I do have some American friends, and it is not all Americans. I can't speak on their behalf, but I know I have American friends who are not happy with what's going on as well, and who fully support Ukraine. But it is a very strange time when one of the more powerful countries in the world is throwing everything into chaos. But it really, from the heart, I can't express how upset I am and how upset Canadians are of what's going on. Like, really upset. And we fully support you.
Thank you.
And I don't want to get into politics. This is a sport podcast, but what is your opinion of what's going on with, I don't like to say United States because, like I said, it's not all United States, but what do you think about what is going on with the President of the United States and what he's doing right now?
I think he thinks about himself only.
Yeah, I would agree on. I think that might be actually all you need to say. And I would agree. And it's just unfortunate that he's leading a country right now, and making decisions like this. So yeah, I agree. I think we can move on from that as well. I agree. And I don't think it has anything to do with politics.
Yeah.
It doesn't have anything to do with politics. This is about morals, ethics, and being a human being. It has nothing to do with politics. Friends and allies should help each other. Yeah. So we'll move on from that, but I think we both agree on that.
Yeah.
What do you think is the solution to what's going on in Ukraine right now? How would you solve this?
The most peaceful solution to the problem is when Russia withdraws its troops from the entire territory of Ukraine, Crimea, Donetsk, Lugansk, and Ukraine joining NATO.
Yeah.
So that Russia could no longer attack us.
Honestly, I agree with you on this one as well, and I'm not doing that just to make you happy, but I would agree. I think hopefully a peaceful solution. I don't know how Ukraine and Russia would sit down at the same table and talk with Putin in charge, but I mean that would be great. And I agree about the withdrawal, and you got my vote for NATO. So we think you should be there, and I think that as well that would help. So I agree. Yehor, those are all our scripted questions. And I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you for the time and being on the podcast. Is there anything you want to say to the race walking community and anybody else out there Is there anything you want to say?
First of all, I want to thank our defenders, our warriors, armed forces, international legion, every volunteer, and thanks to everyone who supports us. People of Canada, we love us. We love you.
We fully support. Look, we think Zelensky is probably one of the bravest leaders I've ever come across. He acts, if you're not aware of it, how the rest of the world thinks. We think he is classy, professional, brave. We have no problem about how he dresses. And I love the fact that he was a comedian before he became president. He was a comedian on a show about him becoming president and then became president. I love it. We're not saying he's perfect. No one is, but he is doing an amazing job right now. And there's a lot of respect for him, a lot of respect for Ukraine, and a lot of respect for those fighting right now. So hats off to you. Okay. And here we go. Here's my bad Ukrainian coming in. Diak Kayu. Did I say thank you?
Yeah.
Okay,
Дякую.
back to you. And here we go. Here's my next one. Okay, I practiced this one. We'll see how it comes off. Miez Ukrainio. Miez Ukrainio. I tried to say we stand with Ukraine. I don't know if I can do that very well. Your reaction says no.
Ми
So
з
I
України.
got the thank you part, and I'll say that we stand with Ukraine in English so that everybody understands.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll try and get some Ukrainian subtitles for this podcast when it goes out so that the Ukrainian people who don't understand English might be able to understand the podcast as well. I'll see what I can do.
That would be great.
Thank you.
And I want to say that I love our racewalking community and feel like I'm in a big loving family.
I agree. I think sport brings us together. I think sport can unite people, and I think there seems to be a very caring and understanding community in the racewalking world. So I hope that continues across borders and brings us together. So thank you so much, Yehor. Stick around after I say goodbye and we'll chat for a bit. But in terms of the podcast, folks, I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm hoping maybe we can talk to more Ukrainian athletes as we go along this year. And perhaps it'll be when the war is over. So we can only hope for it. So thank you again. Enjoy the podcast, folks, and we'll talk to you all soon. That's it, folks. The end of the podcast. No walkers have been harmed in the recording of this podcast. And of course, at the moment, we have no sponsors or supporters at this point to fund all this amazing podcasting. But if you're out there and have a race walk company that produces some sort of race walk apparel product or something you think race walkers would love, get hold of us. We'd love to have you on board. Give us a holler.